this month has been one of the most devastating months in recent memory. Mainly the fact that with this being the first month of 2024, and we're heading into February this week, believe me, there are multiple reasons onto why I haven't been making multiple videos and having a difficult time getting into those video projects. But as far as I'm concerned, this drama of the topic of the video is one of the reasons onto why that when there's a breaking point on how to draw a line on handling too much, it will be the Chuggaaconroy situation. Now, if you guys remember that I've uploaded a video centering around Chuggaaconroy nearly a week ago that I ended up deleting, it's mainly the fact that it was before the recent allegations centering around him texting a 15-year-old girl that her friend made a 48 Google document centering around her experiences with Emil, which leads to pedophilia. And after witnessing that, I had to delete my video because with that information, this didn't broke me, it killed me without dying. I comment on that on a different video centering around the situation, but as the days went by, centering around Emil going to a mental hospital while getting therapy, and he was probably going to commit suicide, which isn't really the case, but it could when it came to him having body problems before this situation happened. It really feels like that at this point, I just couldn't be able to take it, and even though that the victims have every right to call out on this situation, at the very least, it's not really helping a lot when it comes to mental health from not only from Emil, but also other people. Granted, I am aware that people like Nintendo Capri Sun and Porton John don't condone Emil's actions, and there are multiple reasons onto why that having to condone someone else's actions isn't right. But at the same time, when it comes to the punishment, I'll admit that Emil needs to take a break from the internet and trying to improve himself when it comes to his foot fetish. And even though that the victims don't deserve the blame, at the very least, I'm having a difficult time feeling sympathy towards them because even though that the girl who released her friend released her document centering around her experiences with Emil when it comes to Emily, believe me when I say this, with the years of her hanging out with Emil, and I did watch the videos that she was in Chuggaaconroy's videos, it was, even though it was a long time coming and she couldn't take it anymore, at the same time, it's mainly the fact that she released the information at a time while she really couldn't be able to take the pressure anymore due to the foot ironic roleplay that she has with Emil, that she refuses to say no towards Emil, and the fact that Emil shouldn't have stopped when he had the chance. Believe me, these relationships, despite the fact that Emil is already in a relationship with his girlfriend, just makes me convinced that this entire community just feels, while back in the past it was great and fun to listen to, witness, but thinking about it now, it really feels like that they couldn't be able to communicate on the situation with so much things going on, with Porton John unfollowing Emil on Twitter, all the while agreeing with his wife or girlfriend, I like Luca Chin, if that's Porton John's girlfriend or wife, and judging of how that Emil just finished his Black and White 2 LP that he started all the way up from April of last year. it really feels like that this is a lot more difficult for everyone to maintain on the situation, because the thing is, I understand that people had to cut ties to a person when they do stuff like this. Like, I'm totally understand that. Like, the second allegation centering around the pedophilia situation was really something that can affect people's mental health when they see their childhood hero Chuggaaconroy doing something like this. But I'm sorry, if Emil did this like years ago, then I would understand people cutting ties from him completely. But the thing is, I've watched Emil since 2010 with his Wind Waker LP. And to tell you the truth, even though that I do not remember everything, since I don't have a library of memories from the past by watching videos on the internet, I still can't be able to go against Emil 100% when it comes to this whole scandal situation, because for someone who was underneath of teenage years, well, I was 11 when I saw Emil for the first time, and witnessing jokes that were a lot more offensive, that the more I get older, the more I realize that the jokes were a little too cringeworthy, to the point that looking back at them, you can't be able to enjoy your childhood completely, because you always have a different development as you get older and older on the things that you feel. And with other YouTubers that I've seen, like AVGN, yes, I actually watch AVGN at 11 to 12 years old, but then again, I watched the Irredeemable before AVGN, along with other content creators. 2010 was literally at the time where YouTube was mainly for people who can do whatever they want. Nowadays, you can't be able to do any of that type of stuff, and to tell you the truth, even though that what Emil did wasn't right at the very least, I can't be able to go against him completely, because he only contacted one minor at the time, and he was 19. Believe me, even when you become an adult, you still need to learn experiences at that age. And while when it comes to the victim being in this scenario, at the very least, she literally did the role playing for the most part. And when people say that when a minor asks you to do roleplay, which is ironic, then you say no immediately. The thing is, it's just, I can't be able to go against Emil completely with this information happening 13 to 14 years ago. And even though that back then the whole situation wasn't that severe when it comes to Chuggaaconroy getting to know Proton John and Nintendo Capri Sun personally, and the fact that he actually communicated with the same person after a decade, I'm gonna be real with you that Chuggaaconroy's foot fetish is honestly difficult for me to describe, because to tell the truth, I'm not really against people who don't like foot fetishes, but at the same time, I just don't understand why people found the whole foot fetish really good. Like, even after watching the Dan Schneider shows, like I call it Victorious and Drake and Josh, as much as I understand where people are coming from on the fact that the foot fetish is really noticeable when it comes to the perversion of Dan Schneider at the very least, I still can't be able to get on board on the whole feet is really disturbing, because as far as I'm concerned, it just, this type of fetish is something that I just couldn't be able to get on board with completely. In my deleted video, as much as I understand that Proton John unfollowed Emil and he's gonna express his side of the story, with these informations coming out, I'm pretty sure that he just needs more time to reflect on how Emil is feeling at the situation, since that this is still January, and I know full well that this whole thing isn't going to be the end. Because to tell you the truth, even though that people have the right to cut ties from Emil, at the very least, whenever I see the videos centering around Emil on camera, believe me when I say this, I was fully aware that people like Chuggaaconroy aren't always perfect people. And when it comes to the videos where people have been talking about developing the 50 facts of Chuggaaconroy that happened in 2008 or 9, well, Emil told that a female falsely claims him for sexual harassment. I don't even think he literally meant that as a way to defend himself, or that message that he said in his Super Mario Galaxy 2 LP about him cutting ties with that friend. Because I'm gonna be real with you, I have a difficult time into thinking that most of the perversion that Chuggaaconroy has is mostly the reasoning of this scandal and the allegations against him is what's probably convinced me to stay away from him even more. Because, to tell you the truth, I never met Chuggaaconroy. In fact, I never met a YouTuber in a convention because I never went to a convention. And to tell you the truth, I know full well that the more I see people centering around their background when it comes to how they're expressive, that when the camera isn't on, it's obvious that every single person isn't going to set an example. And while Chuggaaconroy did set an example when I first watched him back at the time, at the very least, it was at a time where I actually see the good in everything. And when it comes to nowadays, even though that there's a lot to learn as being an adult, at the very least, even with the information coming out, this is just way too overblown for me to handle. Because months ago, Jawad the Completionist was exposed for charity fraud. The whole the has-been hotel situation of having $5,000 being spent, which you pretty much knew what I'm referring to. And now this. And also the Vince McMahon scandal, the sexual harassment and allegations centering around him involving the WWE and TKO. Believe me, it was way too much for me to handle, to the point that whenever I see Chuggaaconroy when it comes to his scandal, believe me, that's like 4 situations happening in the span of 2 months. And to tell you the truth, if I include Zay Macento and Misanthropony from October, it will qualify as 5. But this is where I have to draw the line and actually express what I feel about the situation. Because to tell you the truth, people may not agree with me, but the thing is, I can't take it anymore. The thing is, I don't think that Chuggaaconroy is that irredeemable, because to tell you the truth, with him going to a mental hospital and getting therapy, and the fact that he wants his friends to stay away from him, and the fact that he is still with his girlfriend, I'm going to assume that what's happening behind the scenes is working out slightly better, but at the same time, months requires a lot of recovery. And believe me when I say this, I don't think that Chuggaaconroy is the worst person out there due to the allegations. Because to tell you the truth, the situation centered around Jarrett, Vince McMahon, they are a lot worse than Chuggaaconroy. Believe me when I say this, because even though that you can say that Jawad is passionate when it comes to the stuff that he does when it comes to video games, at the very least, he still committed charity fraud. And when it comes to Chuggaaconroy, he didn't really cause charity fraud. And yes, he may cause pedophilia acts in front of a minor back in 2010, but again, that was almost a decade and a half ago. The thing is that I can't sympathize the victims enough when this information is just spiraling out of control. And I can instantly tell for a fact that if Chuggaaconroy didn't go to a mental hospital while the latest allegations came out, then there would have been a turning point that he would have turned out to be an actual irredeemable person. Because believe me, have you ever seen a person go to a mental hospital when it comes to these situations with other stuff going on, like he has stomach pains and whatnot? No. Believe me, people from the bullying community who've been called out when it comes to doing acts like this, they never went to a mental hospital. Believe me, Toon Critic, when he got exposed 6 years ago, I can guarantee you that he still never went to a mental hospital, and he's done this with multiple minors, while Chuggaaconroy only did with one, and I can hope and pray, even though that I'm pushing it, it's just one minor. I'm just gonna say this right now, that the fetishes that people have, even though that they don't usually keep to themselves, is something that they just have a fascination with. And believe me, even though that's the majority of people don't have fetishes and they keep their reputation intact, especially with people like Portal John, who is self-controlled more than Emil, at the very least, it's just difficult to be a perfect person. Because believe me, it's difficult to see the bad in everything. Well, it's difficult for the person in all this doesn't get the chance to express on how he feels, even though that he needs to spend his time outside of the internet. And to tell you the truth, the articles, well, not really articles, but the DeviantArt post from the Mysterious Mr. Ento stated that he made a long journal centering around Emil and his experiences with Emil. He isn't a time traveler or a wizard, mainly looking into the future of what's going to happen, because he looks into Chuggaaconroy's content when he was in his earlier years on the internet, mainly before he started his YouTube channel. Like, when I say that, I meant watching videos on the internet, enjoying people on the internet. And whenever I completely see people expressing their experiences with the guy, believe me, it's difficult to drop it. Trust me when I say this, is that when people are mostly passionate, they put some effort into it. And it's just difficult for me to see the bad in Chuggaaconroy, especially when more allegations came out. It's not that easy for me to actually move forward. Well, this is possibly the 20th or the 30th person I've seen that has been exposed as a YouTube celebrity. Well, not really a YouTube celebrity, but what I mean is mainly him being a YouTube celebrity and doing some shady stuff that's really, really driving me insane, to the point that even though that everyone isn't innocent at the very least, it's difficult to just let go of the guy and just leave all the goodwill that he made behind, in comparison to other people who have done much more worse than him. Like Emily, who is experiencing trauma, I try to understand, well, her experiences with being around Sugar made her uncomfortable. It's one thing to instantly understand her point of view, considering that she never expressed it to the public after a decade. Along with the other girl who released the allegations were mainly from her friend about Chuggaaconroy role-playing with her in 2010. Let me just say this for a fact, that canceling someone when it comes to how they caused something that they should have done in the first place is really causing a lot more mental pain in comparison to the Gerard scandal. Because to tell you the truth, everyone has every right to go against Gerard the completionist when he caused charity fraud. And when it comes to this situation, when it comes to one minor, even though that minor who used to be a minor deserves some sympathy, at the very least, I can't be able to go against Emil completely. That's the thing. It's... Even though that YouTube isn't the same as it was in its earlier years, at the very least, it's becoming way more ridiculous and repetitive to go through these emotions multiple times. Well, we're supposed to believe someone else that this victim is lying, even though that the victim isn't, and victim shaming is literally the last thing you do, and then suicide is the last thing that you do. What this boils down to is that people have been taking the moral high ground, but the moral high ground is also not the answer. Well, the person behind all this is suffering more mental health than the people typing in their comments on Twitter. It's way too difficult to maintain everything to understand the side of the story. Well, all we've heard is Emily and the girl that Emil roleplayed with back in 2010 of their side of the stories. This is just really difficult for me to find any willing... I just don't think that after this, the Runaway Guys or Chuggaaconroy will never come back. I don't think that's the case because, to tell you the truth, this is just getting way too overblown to the point that if Proton John is willing to give Chuggaaconroy a chance, Emil literally needs to take it complete legitimately 100%. Believe me, it's... Even though that it's going to take months or a year since that Emil stated that he would not delete his YouTube channel, really shows that he just wants to make things right, and in all honesty, I don't want him to leave. I'm one of those people that who are willing to be on Emil's side, even though that I'm not going against the victims, because to tell you the truth, this scandal has become a lot more tedious and more understanding of the matter at hand, of how things have been getting a lot more chaotic. Like, in my first video centering around this situation, I wasn't going to delete the YouTube attributes of Chuggaaconroy along with the 4 videos that I made compilations out of. The Skyward Sword, the Silent Realm, the Sonic Colors Funny compilation, and the Phantom Hourglass that centers around him being in a dungeon that I forgot the name of, and the Super Mario Galaxy 2 kills that included the Green Star misses. The thing is, even though that I don't look up to Emil that much from my childhood at the very least, I can't be able to take much more of this anymore. This is just way too much for me to handle, and to tell you the truth, it will probably take until the end of this year for Emil to actually redeem himself, or in the following year, because to tell you the truth, I highly doubt that he's done with making videos from his Let's Play channel, and he fully understands on why people will cut ties from him when it comes to not supporting him anymore. But to tell you the truth, guys, we've seen this multiple times that when it comes to everyone else that were exposed, it makes sense because they were really irredeemable. But at the same time, when it comes to people like Chuggaaconroy, out of all the videos that I've seen, even though it wasn't off camera, it really shows that he was passionate. And to tell you the truth, whenever I see videos centered around his comments towards feet, mainly the feet are huge from his Majora's Max LP, which I had to look up, along with other videos, it's getting ridiculous to not look at those videos the same way again. And to tell you the truth, the memes that people are claiming is scary is becoming a lot more irritating and ridiculous, especially that SpongeBob meme from Opposite Day. Believe me when I say this, when that meme is too exposed, it just makes the episode worse, even though it was supposed to be out of context. Granted, this has nothing to do with SpongeBob, but believe me, it's really becoming a lot more irritating to look at these scenarios when it comes to people just expressing their opinion on the situation while others are just going overblown and just making AI voices of Chuggaaconroy be worse than people than what he already is. Believe me, when people are using AI voices to have Chuggaaconroy be worse while having people like Emily being better, it's not helping the situation. Trust me, it's just really becoming repetitive to go through the scenario multiple times, and then whenever I see the aftermath into all this when it comes to people cutting ties with it being the answer to everything and never again afterwards, it's just becoming a lot more repetitive that people are just not understanding that this isn't helping whatsoever, and the consequences that Emil should get when it comes to his actions just proves to me that it isn't enough. I'm just saying this right now that even though that it would take time for people to respect Chuggaaconroy again when it comes to his therapy sessions that he's been getting, which is all legit considering that Nintendo Capri Sun isn't lying, since that he's close friends with Chuggaaconroy, and they went to Starbucks and had pizza while watching a cartoon. It really shows that they're working out on the situation just slightly, even though the Nintendo Capri Sun deleted reactions that he had with Chuggaaconroy. Granted, the only reaction that we got from the two is the reaction from the release of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door being released on the Switch, and that was on Chuggaaconroy's channel. As for Proton John, I can guarantee you that it will probably be way more difficult for him to find forgiveness in Emil and try to make amends. But believe me when I say this, even though that this was bound to happen, at the very least, I just really hope that he at least gives Chuggaaconroy a chance. I understand that he doesn't condone what Chuggaaconroy did, but at the same time, it's just, the thing is that I can't be able to go through so much, well, it leads to a situation where they should cut ties forever and not giving them another chance. And even though that they did give him multiple chances behind the scenes, mainly off camera, to tell you the truth, I didn't even expect it will ever come to a point where Emily would expose on the situation. Well, at first, it's mostly debatable, to the point that they made a hashtag of "We Stand with Chuggaaconroy," and then it leads to the allegations that happened almost a decade and a half ago, and with more people being way more critical and into this whole situation, it's just becoming a lot more repetitive. Like, I highly doubt that Emil plays video games for the enjoyment of characters' feet. It may be in some cases, but not 100%, because to tell you the truth, if that was the case, if I have a fetish of going to a place over that thing that people are totally against, then I wouldn't be able to do anything else there. And to tell you the truth, I would probably do anything other than having the fetish that I have right now, because to tell you the truth, I would see the value in other things, and judging of how that it will be a lot more difficult to have that mindset while going to a place they have full notice of, then it just makes the place a lot more difficult to hang out with. Granted, like I said, I never went to a convention, but to tell you the truth, I wish I could, but if only it wasn't this toxic when it comes to people seeing what people shouldn't do, even though that they have a fetish that they don't control of, which is slightly better in comparison to the other people who have done much more worse. And the fact that I just want to enjoy myself at a convention without thinking too much. Because believe me, every time I go to a place, I've been thinking too much that it just destroys the fun and anything else, rather than people just instantly hammering in on Twitter that they're no longer going to be supporting that person, or supporting the matter of a person not being a good role model that they saw when they saw him for the first time. Granted, I'm fully aware that new people have witnessed Chuggaaconroy due to this situation, but to tell you the truth, I really can't be able to go through much more stress, and to tell you the truth, I'd rather wait until Emil makes his response, and I really hope that it's legitimate and better than the responses from other people. Because to tell you the truth, when other people make responses, they're really bad. Miniland, Gerard the Completionist from a month ago, among others. Because to tell you the truth, it really shows that they're not sorry for what they did. In comparison to Emil, he is attempting to change for the good. And since that is just mainly his foot fetish, I can guarantee you that if he comes back and everything is resolved, this whole foot fetish that he has will be gone and no longer going to be a factor. And I can guarantee you that he won't be making jokes centering around feet anymore. I'm just saying this for a fact that at this point, I can't be able to put through so much with everything that's been happening in this month. And since that we're entering in February, a lot of things I had to scrap due to stuff like this. Like, granted, I did other videos in favor of that, but believe me, when there's so much going on when it comes to drama like this, even though that it's important to ignore the drama, at the very least, it's also important to witness the situation at hand. Well, you need to go past multiple people to see the drama and the situation yourself. Not really the drama, but the situation centering around the drama. And believe me, I really wanted to make sure that everything comes out good in the end. Because to tell you the truth, even though that some people will never forgive Emil again, especially when it comes to the victims, which for me personally, I don't blame the victims, but at the very least, I still miss Chuggaaconroy. Even though that I do not watch his videos when it comes to recent videos like his LPs of Black and White 2, I still remember the good times that he had, especially with the Mario Party games, because to tell you the truth, even though that it doesn't make up with what's happening right now, at the same time, it's difficult to ignore the fact that he had passion into those videos. So for me personally, I'm probably gonna try to give the benefit of the doubt of what people are feeling on the situation at hand, but at the same time, I'm not gonna be one of those people who say that Chuggaaconroy is ruined forever and he's a pedophile, because even though that he is, at the very least, that was 14 years ago, and no matter if people stated that it doesn't matter if it's a long time ago, that is just stretching it way too long and way too difficult to actually see the improvement of people. Because to tell you the truth, I've been witnessing so many pedophilia acts involving real people that it's just becoming really irritating and way more frustrating, to the point that I just literally want this whole thing to leave me alone when it comes to real people expressing the situation, because I can still sympathize the victims, but it doesn't change the fact that it's just becoming a lot more irritating to witness so many things that you used to enjoy only to have it being tainted due to the bad. And in all honestly, having to go with the good along with the bad may have happened in other cases that doesn't center around these allegations, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that it just somewhat ruins the enjoyment and becomes a lot more irritating to move forward, knowing full well that you need to reach to a breaking point where you need to say, I can't take it anymore. I really wanted everything to be good, and to the point that reality is just pushing way too far. Because to tell you the truth, there's a difference on being way too real rather than being real. Because when I think about this type of stuff being real, it just expects me to not look into the good in people anymore, even though that I don't go by that case 100% when it comes to other people that have been exposed. But for people like Emil, I just can't. I may have been rambling for about 36 minutes, but to tell you the truth, I really need to get my side of the story out, and I really hope that there are amends into the situation. Believe me when I say this, I just don't want to go through the same scenario of a person leaving YouTube forever, and while he has to cut ties with people at the very least, I just really hope that everything turns out well and everything can be resolved completely. Because at this point, the punishment that Emil is getting is having a therapy session, which he actually needs, and still taking time off from the internet. That's literally what he is going through when it comes to improving himself and taking the consequences of his actions. That's literally all I think of when it comes to the scandal right now. And to be perfectly real with you, it shouldn't end in the same result as people leaving the internet, because even though that cancel culture isn't really the case when it comes to the second allegation, at the very least, when it comes to people like Emil, it shouldn't be the answer to having a person leave forever for the good of everything. Because to tell you the truth, it can sometimes be the opposite. As for me, I'm planning on doing more Steven Universe videos for my Steven Universe marathon for Summerpalooza 5 this year, and I'm trying to focus on that. But at the same time, there was a reason onto why that most of my videos have been scrapped when it comes to drama like this, and I'm honestly thankful that after this month, one video per week for me is literally the best that you're going to be getting for my content. Which, for me personally, isn't much of a regular scheduling when it comes to what I had in 2023. But believe me, Summerpalooza 5 is gonna be huge, since most of the problems of canceling videos does center around that. But as for this drama alone, I just really hope that they are reconciling in some of the capacity. When it comes to making videos again, that would take months in advance for it to work out. Believe me, Chuggaaconroy is one of my favorite LPOs, to the point that just witnessing this drama and in the allegations, especially we're still in the month of January, along with other things, I just don't want everything to end. Because even though it comes to a point where you need that something should end, not like this when it comes to people like Emil. Because as far as I'm concerned, I've been through so much to the point that I can't be able to be on the bandwagon of cancel Emil, he shouldn't come back because he's a pedophile. It's really, really repetitive, and I just really, really want this whole thing to be resolved regularly, rather than just doing the status quo of having that person leave and never coming back. It's just too much for me to handle, to the point that being a perfect person when it comes to doing the right things isn't always the answer to everything when it comes to Emil's case. And that's mainly the fact that his fetish, while it's being taken care of, at the very least, it doesn't really make me think that he should be leaving forever. Because if he's getting self-controlled right now, when it comes to the therapy sessions and his time with Tim, who is Nintendo Capri-san. Hopefully something good will come out of this, because even though that people may not forgive Emil, it will only take time for them to actually come back to Emil. If he comes back and everything is straightening up when it comes to his relationships with Porton John and Nintendo Capri-san, because to be perfectly real with you, even though that these two are older than Emil at the very least, I rather just hope that, even though that they do not condone his actions, I just think that they should seriously give it more time in order to have everything resolved completely while working out those differences with Emil. But then again, I'm not like the mysterious Mr. Ento. I'm not a time traveler or a wizard that predicts the future or anything else for that matter. I just really hope that things just work out fine, and I really hope that with this information coming out, it will probably be enough. And I really hope that it's just those allegations from 2010 and Emily, because if there was any more, then I really don't even think that Emil will ever come back. But I really hope that those allegations are the only ones, and Emil may find a way to resolve this whole situation and be a better person. He can still be as he was, but at the same time, eliminate his foot fetish and understand his limitations. I'm Lonely Fanboy 48 here, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.